it hit me. I had this thought. I said to myself, yeah, he was right. I need a little more help here. And then boom. Have you ever thought about how injuries that you may have picked up in school may still be bothering you today? And I'm not talking about physical injuries such as splitting your forehead open or breaking your collarbone. I'm talking more along the lines of injuries to your attitude. Because if you look at the definition of injury, it's a hurt, damage, or loss sustained. And if you think about that in terms of schooling, sometimes you can suffer losses to your potential due to the way in which everything is organized. Of course, that's going to depend on each individual, but I know for myself, I wasn't a kid willing to put my hand up and say I needed help. I didn't want to be seen as someone who was vulnerable. I didn't want to be seen as someone who didn't know all the answers. And because of that, I probably lost out on a lot of potential that I could have progressed with in school. Because as I've grown older, I began to realize that those who progress the most in many aspects are those who are willing to put their hand up and say, hey, I need a little bit of help here. In fact, I run a community of people who need help with their injuries and are willing to put their hand up and say, I need that help. Could you support me a little more here? And I want to display an important story that shows how powerful doing that can be. I was surfing with Stephen, and if you look at Stephen here, he's a good surfer. He's far more experienced than I am. But I said to myself that day, I'm going to try and do what Stephen does. I'm going to try and ride the same waves as Stephen is. And it didn't entirely go to plan. In fact, I couldn't even get up on my surfboard. At one stage, the lifeguard came up to me and said, you either need to get lessons off many of the instructors that can give you lessons along this beach, there were hundreds of them, or you need to go over there to the children's waves. I kind of sort of dismissed this and said, oh look, I'll be fine, I'll give it another go, I'm just warming up. So I went back out there, and then this massive wave came. I was going to try and catch it, but literally a millisecond before it hit me, I had this thought. I said to myself, yeah, he was right, I need a little more help here. And then boom. I finished up surfing for the day and said to myself, I'm going to come back here tomorrow, which I did. And instead of just trying to do it all by myself, I went up to one of the surf stalls, said to one of the gentlemen there, hey, would you be able to help me? I'm struggling. I wasn't making any progress yesterday. I can't see myself progressing beyond where I am unless I get support. So he brought me out. His name was Christopher, and we couldn't even speak the same language, but he was able to communicate to me how my footing was wrong, how my head wasn't tilting in the right direction, and how I wasn't using my arms to support me. And because I learned those things, I was able to have a really good day of surfing, because prior to that, I honestly didn't know what I was doing wrong. I needed someone to point it out for me. And I want to circle this back to overcoming injuries, because if you're someone who's willing to put their hand up and say, I need a little more help here, you'll suddenly be exposed to ideas that can help you move better and eventually get to the point where you're doing things you used to love so much that you may not be able to do now, or perhaps you're just feeling significantly less pain throughout the day. And an interesting aspect of the time that we're living in is that you can get this help via platforms like YouTube. You can simply search up the challenge you're dealing with, and you're going to come across abundant amounts of results of people who are advising you and giving you suggestions on how you can move better and better deal with those challenges. And like I said earlier, it's those people who are willing to put their hands up that are most likely to succeed. It annoys me when I hear of people who don't put their hand up and then conclude that there is no answer to their solution. And you see it a lot in the injury space. If somebody is struggling with a particular injury and they don't see any solution out of it, and therefore they conclude they should quit running, they should go and get that surgery that may be unnecessary. You're not going to see answers if you're not willing to put your hand up and search for them, which is why I believe this to be one of the greatest injuries of our time, but also something you can develop great potential if you're already doing this. Because if you step outside of that and you're willing to put that hand up and ask for help, it can create revolutionary changes to the way you move and the way you live your life. Of course, there are limitations to things like YouTube videos, in the sense that you may get to a point where you need something more personalized. And if that's where you're at, or you're just having trouble deciding which content suits you the best, I'd highly suggest having a look at the Move Forever community, because in there you'll find various programs for the specific challenge that you are likely facing, whether that be a knee, a lower back, a shoulder. It's all in there, and on top of that you'll get the opportunity to ask me questions for more personal responses. In many ways I can be to you what Christopher was to me when it came to surfing, and because of that it can help you make the breakthrough you may be looking for. So if you want to check that out, the link is in the description of this video, and stay tuned for the next video where I'm going to be exploring a way in which you can more effectively train your upper body in order to reduce injuries in areas like the shoulder, the elbow and the wrist, and get better results from the reps that you're already doing.